Hey guys, what's going on? My name's Arden, and today I'm going to talk about Young Justice. So, I've decided it's time to just put away that whole idea to do the whole Green Lantern series. I was getting some complaints about it, but really it was just, I got tired of doing it. That's the main reason I didn't want to do these anymore, is that I feel like I've talked about the series, and it just doesn't feel like I need to go through every single episode. I think that was just a relic of ideas I got from other review channels that will go through each thing. Instead, I'm just going to kind of talk about like ongoing media stuff like Joey's kind of started doing, as well as like more historical comic book content as well. And that's what we're going to do today. So today, instead of going through each episode of Young Justice, I'm just going to talk about the series as a whole. We have two major topics to discuss. First, I'm going to do a quick little review of the show. But that's not really what we're going to talk about today, so I'll get rid to the second part in a minute, and that's going to be talking about what happened to the show, which I find very interesting, and we'll get into that in just a moment. So, to start off with, what do I think of Young Justice? So I haven't watched every episode, but like I said, that's not really the main point of this review. I have seen a good chunk of it, and I really like it. It's a good show. I like the cast. You can kind of think of it as like a different version of the Teen Titans, like as a roster, so it's full of younger heroes. They're all kind of tied to the Justice League, so you have like Miss Martian, I think she's called. I don't even remember everyone's name, but there's like MacLeod and Superboy, so just different younger heroes. But it's otherwise the same idea as Teen Titans. One thing that was different from the Teen Titans TV series and this show is that this show was a lot more tied to the Justice League. So you saw appearances of Batman and Superman. You'd never see the older heroes in the Teen Titans show. So Young Justice did that. Had really good animation. It took some getting used to because it's very similar to like the cartoons that I grew up on, like Batman the Animated Series, Superman, the Justice League, those sort of things. This is a little more realistic, so it just took some getting used to, but it's better. Like that's what I'm getting used to, is the better animation, the better detail and design of like the bodies and faces of everybody, and it's just a better show. And yeah, other than that, I don't have much else to add. It's a good show, and it was really well done, well put together. I could go into depth and go through a full review of everything I like and don't like about it, but overall, I don't have a lot of complaints about it. I don't have any real negative thing to do. It's a kid's show-ish, but it dealt with some older themes, and it was just a good superhero show, and had a lot of really good characters, and it was really popular too, and that's the interesting thing. So that's a good segue, I guess, into what I really want to talk about, and that's why Young Justice was cancelled. So like I said, it was really popular. It attracted a solid demographic. It got good reviews from critics and fans, and it got a nice following, and like to this day it still has a following. Really popular show, and like this is the first thing you guys were asking for in terms of when I started talking about TV shows and like just pushing our content outside of comic books a little bit, just still related to comics obviously, but just into the other forms of media that this content started to crop up in. And it was a really good show, and really popular, and it did well in ratings. So it's not like it was Game of Thrones or like Breaking Bad or anything like that, but it did do well with ratings. It did good for a cartoon show and good for a show on the Cartoon Network. So, if it was reviewed well, if it was popular and liked by a lot of people, and if it had decent ratings, why was it cancelled? And I get that question a lot from people on unrelated or somewhat related videos. They'll just be like, not even asking us directly, but like, I can't believe that show was cancelled, or I have gotten a few people asking like, do you know why Young Justice was cancelled? And so I don't think a lot of people realize why that is, and I actually do know why. Now, this isn't exactly official. I've heard this through a number of channels, and most importantly, I've read about it in an interview with Paul Dini, one of the creators of these shows and a major figure in like animation and that sort of thing. So it's unlikely he would have a good reason to lie about this. He might distort things, or this is his interpretation of it. But knowing what I know about the movie industry, the comic book industry in particular, and the television industry, what I'm about to tell you makes a lot of sense, and I have no reason to doubt it not being true. I just can't state it for a confirmed fact. But this is basically the only logical reason Young Justice was cancelled. So that reason, I didn't need to delay it or build up to it or anything. It did attract a demographic, but it was the wrong demographic. That's the key reason to understanding why Young Justice was canceled. So Young Justice, unlike the average like cartoon about superheroes, attracted a lot of older viewers and a lot of girls. This basically was the death sigil for Young Justice, is these two demographics, because neither of these groups are young boys. And I know that sounds silly, and I'm sure there is like a huge following of young boys who watched Young Justice and liked Young Justice, but in the eyes of the network executive, not enough of them watched the show. They don't want or care that girls watch the show. They never cared about that, and they outright told Paul Dini, we don't care like about girls watching the show. We don't want girls to watch this show. Like it's crazy to say that, but the idea behind a lot of these shows and a lot of movies and television along these lines is it has, like, the real money's in merchandising. For all the revenue you get from movie tickets or like television advertising or any other medium like DVD sales and that sort of thing, that is chump change compared to merchandising. Because it costs millions of dollars to produce a TV show and like tens if not hundreds of millions of dollars to produce a movie, it does not cost a fraction of that to design, develop, and produce an action figure. Now, the shows are what sell the action figure, so companies are more than willing to put the money in to make another Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. That's why they'll never go away. Those things sell toys, and they sell them to young boys. Same thing with most superhero stuff. This is what makes the money. It costs them 10 cents it costs them like a penny or two to manufacture this cup. And then they sell it for like at least $1 or so. That's a huge profit margin and way bigger than any dollar you put into a movie or something like that. So it's all about merchandising, and you have to understand this from a merchandising perspective. So the second that Young Justice didn't get a huge following of young boys, but rather it got a large following of girls and older viewers, that was it for the show. And that's why it got canceled so early, and that's why like it struggled through production and stuff. There were issues, I remember that now. And that's a huge, like, I'm sure for some people, some of you probably know this, but for those of you who don't, that's probably really crushing or upsetting to hear that a show that like a lot of people love, and in my eyes rightfully so, was canceled because they couldn't sell enough toys. Never mind the fact that young girls buy toys and older girls buy toys. Like a lot of people buy toys. I literally just had that cup on my desk. Like it's not like I had it planned. It's just literally something sitting around. But like, you're telling me you can't sell girls action figures? You can't sell girls Young Justice merchandise like backpacks, books, that sort of thing? No. The problem is that you're not used to that demographic for this type of product. You're used to selling comic book stuff to boys while girls get Barbies and dolls and whatever else you think that girls want. No, you can't put in any effort to like try and reach out to like girls and sell them stuff. Never mind the fact that plenty of girls and boys loved this show, and all you had to do was just push it a little more and you definitely would have sold it to them. Like, it blows my mind. It's inconceivable that girls wouldn't ask as much as boys for like, oh, like something Young Justice. Like, I like Young Justice. So it's very frustrating. I'm sure to a degree that would be more difficult, and so of course DC decides, or I don't know if it was Cartoon Network's decision or Warner Brothers, probably a mix of both, and the toy companies they're partnered with, that it was like, oh, we'll just produce content to boys because it's easier. Like, never mind the fact that you have this great show and you have a following for it, a following who would definitely buy Young Justice stuff if you just tried. Like, I think that's all they had to do was really just try it. No, it's easier to just say, no, that's not our demographic, that's not who we're used to selling for, we're going to cancel the show and replace it with whatever Cartoon Network went with next. Meanwhile, like, I can't even conceive of comic book material out there that's mainstream, most importantly, and appeals to girls more than guys. And that's fine. Like, it's fine if it's a male-dominated industry, but it would be, especially as comics are getting more and more part of, like, mainstream life, and, like, everyone's gonna be seeing Age of Ultron this weekend. people are always talking about these comic book movies now. Like, friends of mine who have nothing to do with comic books are perfectly familiar with the intricacies of, like, the Marvel Cinematic Universe now. Because it's such a big movie and, like, good movies that they want to be a part of it. So you have this field growing, and you want it to be more welcoming to everyone. Girls, guys, children, adults, everyone. And you have this show, this, like, brilliant show that's appealing to girls for, like, as far as I know, the first time ever in, like, comic book cartoon history. And screw it, that's not who we want, and so it's gonna get canceled. And it's so crushing. When I found out about this, I kind of wanted to share it, and that's why I said early on I'd do Young Justice. And now that I'm kind of like stepping away from the vlogs, I was like, well, we have to do a video talking about this, because I had to share this. It has been bugging me, and it really frustrates me. I think it's very telling about the industry. Like, it's just a really frustrating aspect of the decision-making process behind, like, making this comic book related content. They don't put the story first, and I guess anyone would be naive to assume that, but I don't think it's really much of a factor to them at all. It's really just all about the bottom line, and if they can make, like, crap and sell it, they will. If they have to produce good content to sell it, they will. But only if they have to. Otherwise, they'll just do lowest common denominator, whatever they can sell. Who cares about quality? Who cares about, like, solid content? It's just about making the dollar. And you can't blame them. They're a business. But it would be nice if the quality of the content was assured along the way. And they should. Part of what's good about Marvel is that I feel like it's almost a stamp of approval that it will be at least of a certain quality. Yeah, that's not always true, like, and it hasn't always been true, but at this point they've, in my eyes, earned it. And so that's why I'm, like, actually excited about Age of Ultron, and I don't care about any of DC's movies. Because when DC makes more than, like, one good movie, I'll be a little more convinced than Marvel's, like, slew of good movies. Not all of them have been great, but every single one of them has been entertaining. Like, the last entertaining DC film I've seen is The Dark Knight. Not Rises. I found Rises was okay, and Man of Steel was okay, and Green Lantern was just bad. So I'm not overly convinced on them, and stuff like this bothers me too. And I'm like, look, there's plenty to have issues with Disney, or Marvel, or whatever you're saying. I'm not saying that they're better, but at least they have been putting a lot of energy into quality lately. I have to give them props for that. That's all I can say, and it would be nice if quality was a bigger determining factor, not just whatever sells the most toys. Now, don't get me wrong, a lot of Marvel's decisions are based on how and where to sell toys. I'm not saying they're better in comparison. I'm just saying if you look at how they go about making movies versus how DC does, they've been a lot better, and they've been a lot more mindful of, if you make a product people really fall in love with, like the Avengers, the merchandising will follow it. People will want to buy Avengers things if they see awesome Avengers things. If they see another Batman and Robin that was built entirely around the concept of just selling toys, they aren't going to buy Batman and Robin stuff. So we have to think. They have to think about this content stuff. And this isn't a call for action. It's just kind of it's an answer to a question I think a lot of you have had, and that's what the unfortunate reality of the situation is. You can understand a lot about how comic book movies and television is made by merchandising. And I hate to have a video that's kind of on such a sour note. I'm not really saying that it's all bad. Like, we're in a golden age for Marvel movies, DC movies, X-Men movies, and even Spider-Man movies are actually looking like they're going to happen and be potentially a lot better, too. That's exciting. That is so exciting that we're, like, doing this. And it's great. If content can be good and they can sell stuff, then that's win-win for everybody. And it is largely good. But if you ever wanted to know, like, why Young Justice got canceled, why Green Lantern, the animated series, got canceled, why... I'm sure I could think of, like, 50 other or not think of, but I'm sure I could find, like, 50 other, like, even just Marvel DC shows that have been canceled or changed. Marvel had, like, Avengers, like this Avengers cartoon that got retweaked and made a lot more like kiddie and generic, but it actually had a really solid first season, and then they made all these changes because they wanted it to be more like the Avengers in the movies, and they wanted it to appeal more to kids. So both companies do it. It's just an attempt to educate, and hopefully you guys liked it. Once again, this isn't replacing any of our actual content, like any of the Origins bios, recaps, or anything like that. This is done on days when I have no chance to get a whole one of those videos completed, and it's just filler content. So I hope you guys liked it. Let me know what you think of all this. Let me know what you think of Young Justice, what you think of my little story about what happened to Young Justice in the comments section below. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and keep reading comics.